This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Welcome aboard by plane, train, and automobile. A record 45 million Americans are traveling for the Memorial Day holiday. Many of you are on the road right now. AAA's Robert Sinclair.
I think the big X factor is gasoline prices, which are so much cheaper compared to a year ago, upwards of about 50 cents cheaper.
Gas prices are the best they've been for the unofficial start to summer in at least 4 years. Transportation analyst Chris Van Cleve.
So where are people going? Well, domestically, it's places like Orlando and Las Vegas, San Diego and Boston. Internationally, some pretty good destinations. London, Cancun, Paris, and Rome top the list.
Cancun sounds good to me. State police will be out and about making sure that wherever you're going, you are getting there safely. DUI patrols are in full force, and cops will be looking for seatbelt compliance as well. Murder in the first. A Chicago man accused of gunning down a Jewish couple in D.C. this week could be getting the death penalty.
This is a horrific crime, and these crimes are not going to be tolerated.
Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia.
A young couple at the beginning of their life's journey, about to be engaged, had their bodies removed in the cold of the night in a body bag.
The couple worked for the Israeli embassy in Washington. Robert Milgram is the father of Sarah Milgram, who was killed along with her boyfriend, Yaron Lashinsky.
She was as close to perfect as any human could be. We have great memories, but the future is gone.
The murder suspect facing hate crimes and terrorism charges, as well as first-degree murder charges. Mideast scholar Laura Blumfield.
He was like the little terrorist that could. I think I can, I think I can. He just repeated slogans to himself often enough to make it true.
The 31-year-old accused killer shouted "Free Palestine" as he was taken into custody. Last night, a candlelight vigil was held near the White House to honor the murder victims. Harvard University can no longer enroll foreign students. The Department of Homeland Security issued that edict yesterday. Correspondent Garrett Haight.
What started months ago with the administration's stated concerns about anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus has now spiraled into this full-fledged showdown between the government and the nation's oldest and wealthiest university.
Foreigners already attending Harvard are being told to transfer or leave the country. Legal analyst Jessica Levinson.
I can't think of another situation where an administration took an action that is this aggressive against an institution of higher learning.
The White House says Harvard failed to turn over requested documents pertaining to foreign students. Foreigners make up about 1/4 of Harvard's overall enrollment. The school's expected to fight that order in court. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer wants answers into who knew what and when it comes to ex-President Joe Biden's declining health while in office.
We're going to request that 4 staffers that we've identified as the main gatekeepers for the Biden White House, that they come and answer our questions. These are the unelected bureaucrats that we believe had an overwhelming influence over Joe Biden and could have possibly been serving as de facto presidents of the United States.
Political commentator Hannah Cox.
Biden was not cognitive. He was not making the majority of the decisions. He was barely operating at a functional level. I think clearly you had a lot of people with an invested interest within the DNC, within the deep state, within the bureaucracy, who knew if they got him another 4 years, essentially it kept them in power.
Earlier this week, a bombshell book was published accusing Biden's inner circle of hiding from the American people the former president's declining health. The pilot of that small plane that crashed into a San Diego neighborhood yesterday had expressed concern about the weather moments before the crash. Reporter Carter Evans says the Cessna went down in foggy conditions.
The small small plane left a trail of fire through one of the largest U.S. military housing neighborhoods in the country.
The plane clipped a power line, struck about 10 homes, and destroyed several vehicles. All 6 people on board were killed. 8 people on the ground were injured. President Trump's Make America Healthy Again Commission has released its long-awaited report, and the results are shocking.
If you had a magic wand right now, what's one thing you would change about the way people eat in America?
I think ultra-processed food, I think that is the root cause, and sugars. I think if we could get rid of those, we could virtually get rid of diabetes in this country.
Health Secretary Robert Kennedy says more than 40% of kids today have at least one chronic disease.
It's common sense that ultra-processed, nutrient-poor food contributes to chronic disease. It's common sense that excessive screen time and isolation lead to anxiety and depression, especially in children. It's common sense that over-medicating kids is dangerous.
Fox News medical analyst Dr. Drew Pinsky says there's been a 1,400% increase in medicines prescribed to children, and yet children today are sicker than ever.
We expect solutions in a pill. They're not there. Solutions are in a spiritual growth, in our families, the mental health of these kids, giving them proper nutrition.
The Maha report concludes the driving force behind childhood diseases today is poor diet, lack of exercise, chemicals in food, chronic stress, and over-medication. A frog gave the commencement address last night at the University of Maryland, but it wasn't just any frog. It was Kermit the Frog.
I know the past 4 years have brought more challenges than anyone expected. But look at you. I know that you're going to be okay. You did it! And I think that deserves another round of applause!
Kermit's creator, the late Jim Henson, graduated from Maryland in 1960. Still to come on the Noon Report, Penn State, downsizing, Memorial Day etiquette, and vaping use among teens.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. We've made it to the Memorial Day weekend. Weather-wise, it looks like it will end a whole lot nicer than it will begin. Forecast details are up in 10.
All right, Kevin, look forward to what you have then. In the meantime, let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. Penn State shutting down 7 satellite campuses. The official announcement came Thursday. They are Penn State Du Bois, Fayette, Mont Alto, New Kensington, Shenango, Wilkes-Barre, and York. Financial struggles and declining enrollment, the reason why. Penn State President Neely Bendapudi.
This moment is not a reflection at all of any individual or any campus, but rather the circumstances that have been building for quite some time.
Congressman Glenn G.T. Thompson telling WJAC closing these campuses is not a wise move.
I think that's a huge mistake. I think that the Board of Trustees needs to back up and reimagine what education at Penn State, especially on these campuses like Du Bois.
Penn State trustee Jay Paterno has sympathy for any and all affected students and staff.
I hope they know that there are at least some of the people on the Board of Trustees that are very concerned about what the future holds for them, are cognizant of the impact it will have on their lives.
The 7 campuses slated for closure will be no more after the 2026-27 academic year. Those schools will not be allowed to accept any more students after the 2025 fall semester. Buffalo State University in Western New York is paring down programs to try and save money. Nearly 20 programs will be cut as the university announces a projected deficit of up to $17.5 million. Enrollment at Buff State has dropped 45% the past decade. As many as 3 tornadoes touched down Wednesday in western Pennsylvania. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
National Weather Service investigators are trying to determine the strength of a tornado that touched down near Center Township, Butler County, Pennsylvania during Wednesday's storms, and are looking into the possibility that 2 more twisters touched down in the region. National Weather Service meteorologists say the Center Township tornado was confirmed through video evidence. The other 2 were at the tip of southern Allegheny County and in Washington County near Canonsburg. Much of western Pennsylvania received 1 to 2 inches of rain during Wednesday's storms. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Monday is Memorial Day, and a lot of people get it confused with Veterans Day, which we recognize in November. Here to differentiate between the two is former Marine and current chaplain at the Bath VA in Steuben County, New York, Matthew Suter.
Veterans Day began at the conclusion of World War I. At the time, it was called Armistice Day. That was the day the shooting stopped to end the most terrible war the world had ever seen up until that point. So Memorial Day is different. Instead of a day of feasting and celebration, it should be rightly understood as a day of mourning, a day for grief. So on Memorial Day, we do not rejoice in victories won or offer thanks to veterans. Instead, we set aside the day to remember the troops who did not return home. So in Christian terms, consider the difference between, say, Resurrection Day and Good Friday for an example of a celebration versus a solemn assembly.
That is Matthew Suter, a former Marine and the current chaplain at the Bath VA in Steuben County, New York. We're going to be talking more with Suter during a special Memorial Day edition of the Noon Report. That's coming up on Monday. 5 men have been arrested in connection with a drug ring operating out of an apartment building in Syracuse. Authorities say the trafficking organization ran like a legitimate business at the Parkside Commons on East Fayette Street. A search of 2 apartments led to the discovery of cocaine, fentanyl, a loaded ghost gun, and drug paraphernalia. All 5 suspects were part of the same gang. Officials say a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old overdosed at one of those apartments. The percentage of teenagers who vape is on the rise, and officials are worried about the growing use of cannabis vapes among kids.
I think one of the biggest issues with vapes is the accessibility. They're everywhere. And a big danger with them is that a lot of these are passed from child to child.
Dr. Annie Sumrall at Arnott Health in the Southern Tier.
A lot of times when children start using substances, you want to look for like stark changes in personality or behaviors, sudden mood changes. Are they isolating more? Were they someone that used to be really passionate about sports or instruments, band, and all of a sudden they're pulling away from that?
Sumrall says teens use vapes more than any other tobacco product. Almost 6% of kids today vape on a regular basis. Tops Friendly Markets is teaming up with DoorDash. The partnership will allow customers to shop at Tops without ever having to leave the comfort of their home. Now, to take part in the door delivery service, you'll need to download the DoorDash app and search for the closest Tops store near you. Filming continues at Highmark Stadium in Buffalo for that new Bills Hallmark Channel Christmas movie. Family Life's Dee Haley.
The first day of filming at Highmark Stadium began yesterday for Hallmark Channel's new Buffalo Bills Christmas movie, Holiday Touchdown, A Bills Love Story. Film crews will be in Western New York until mid-June. Hall of Famer Jim Kelly and current players Deion Dawkins, Reed Ferguson, and Joshua Palmer were on set yesterday for their roles in the movie. More than 2,500 extras are being used for filming at the stadium. The Bills Mafia will be out in force again today as filming at the stadium continues. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
All right, thank you, Dee. Sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on Family Life.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, a day after being named the league's MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went out and showed why he deserved the award. He poured in a game-high 38 points, and he had help. Jalen Williams scored 26 and hauled down 10 rebounds as Oklahoma City cruised to a 118-103 victory and a 2-0 series lead over the Minnesota T-Wolves. The Brooms were busy in Major League Baseball yesterday. The Yankees used them to sweep the Rangers 1-0. The unlikely hero was Jorby Bibas. He slugged his first big league home run in the 5th inning, and that was all Carlos Rodon needed. He went 6 scoreless, struck out 8. The Yanks have now won 4 in a row. Winning streaks and broom sweeps were happening in Colorado as well. The Phillies swept the 4-game series with the Rockies with a 2-0 win. Bryce Harper and Max Kepler both hit doubles to drive in the runs. And Ranger Suarez went 6 2/3 innings to get the win. Phillies' winning streak is now at 7. They have the best record in the National League at 32-18. The Pirates could not make it 3 in a row as they fell to the Brewers 8-5. Also picking up wins in baseball, the Angels, Guardians, Astros, Nationals, and Blue Jays. And on the ice, Sam Bennett scored one of his 2 goals in Florida's 3-goal first period, and the Panthers were off and rolling to a 5-0 victory over the Carolina Hurricanes. The defending champs are now up 2-0 in that best-of-7 series. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come, Kev calling for gradual improvement in our weather over the Memorial Day weekend. We've got the Capital Connection crew ready to talk shop on all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg. And at the end of the broadcast, ending the penny.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Last year, Colson Fellow Yvonne Rivera Newberry wrote an opinion piece for the Daily Wire. It was entitled, "I'm a Registered Nurse and I'm Sounding the Alarm on Gender Ideology Deception in Medicine." In the article, she described the lunacy that had captivated the medical field. Quote, "Emboldened voices scream about the injustice of appropriation when it comes to racial and ethnic groups. But where's the outcry in defense of the appropriation of women? As if dresses and makeup are the sum of the female experience. To undermine women, those who gave birth to every group, every nation, indeed the world, through imitation, is a great injustice." Yvonne ended her article by stating this, quote, "I will not play the pronoun game or any gender-neutralizing tactic to mock a perfect design. I will not apologize for using the word woman. I am a woman," end quote. Well, less than 48 hours after the piece was published, Rivera Newberry was fired. At the time, she was studying worldview and culture in the Colson Fellows program. Founded by Chuck Colson, the Colson Fellows program equips believers to live courageously from a biblical foundation of truth and calling. When she received a request to meet with the Human Resources Department at her place of employment, Yvonne knew what was coming next. Though many medical professionals had commended her column privately and supported her stand for truth, her employer did not. So Yvonne reached out to her Colson Fellows cohort for prayer and support. Here's what she wrote, quote, "I needed prayer to help me stand firm and have wherewithal and discernment in the meeting. The prayers carried me and grounded me. Nothing about getting fired was pleasant. My solace was knowing that I finally spoke truth in a very public way, and it cost me my job. But the glory goes to Jesus," end quote. Yvonne is an example of what might be called a theology of getting fired. As cultural norms become more antithetical to truth and conformity expected in more and more workplaces, many of us may be forced to choose. Might be that faithfulness for us includes a willingness to live not by lies, and that will entail losing our jobs, our businesses, our social standing. Simply put, we may have to choose between our faith and our job. Standing for truth is a calling of all Christians at all times. It doesn't mean that we're looking for a fight or that every situation requires stubborn and loud resistance, but some do. And as the church, we should make sure that no one who's called to take this stand is alone or unprepared. That's why the Colson Fellows program exists. Over the course of 9 months, fellows meet in regional cohorts studying essential books on Christian worldview and culture and learning through commentaries, articles, webinars, and videos. As they learn in community, whether online or in local gatherings, they wrestle with what God might be calling them to do in their time and place. Colson Fellows program is not a book club. It's an intensive, curated program that helps Christians lead as people of grace and truth in this cultural moment. The program covers topics like truth, gender, government, abortion, false religions, and vocation, all from a biblical perspective. Like Daniel, who purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself, we may all face a similar moment of decision. If your day of choosing between your faith and your financial future has not come yet, it could be around the corner. The good news is you don't have to make that choice alone. Like Yvonne, you can have a community of fellow believers who are ready to stand with you. Read more stories like Yvonne's and learn more about how to apply for the upcoming Colson Fellows class by visiting colsonfellows.org. That's colsonfellows.org. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank Thank you, John. Outside we go. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast. It will be generally overcast this afternoon. A few breaks in western Pennsylvania. And there'll be some rain at times, patchy fog and higher elevations and a breeze. And again, unusually chilly. High temperatures, upper 40s and 50s. Mainly cloudy, chilly tonight, tomorrow, some showers. 40s tonight, 50s to near 60 tomorrow. Sunday, still plenty of clouds and a shower, near 60. And then Monday, Memorial Day, partly sunny and a little milder.
All right, milder sounds good. Thank you, Kevin. It is Friday, folks, the 23rd of May, and this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you, the listener, direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Jason McGuire at New York Families and Michael Gear with the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Well, gentlemen, lots of places to go this week. There were some big votes back on Tuesday in both New York and Pennsylvania. School budget day in New York, and we'll get to that in a minute. But want to start with primary day in Pennsylvania. Michael, every time there's a primary, we always have this conversation. To open up or to keep closed the primary system, Pennsylvania, one of just a few states that is still a closed system. House Democrats want to change that. Why is that a bad idea?
Well, you can certainly put me in favor of maintaining our closed primary system for a variety of reasons. I think, number one, having this system allows the registered voters in the specific parties to select their candidates for the general election in November. Then they can select candidates who actually align with the values and ideals of that party. It also the closed system provides voters with a more meaningful choice than in the fall, because again, they're choosing candidates that supposedly will align with the values of the party. Additionally, closed primaries help prevent what is known as strategic voting, where voters, for instance, in an open primary, the Democrat voters might strategically support the weakest Republican candidate to then likely secure a November victory for the Democrats in the fall or vice versa. And that ultimately undermines the rationale for our two-party system.
Yeah, we've seen some of that tomfoolery in past elections. So we'll see how that goes and how much momentum there is to change things there in the Commonwealth. Right. Jason, the big budget vote on Tuesday in New York, school budgets here. I was telling you off air, I live in the Southern Tier and lived there for 25 years. I have never seen the crowds that I witnessed this week on school budget day. Are people starting to get the picture here and show up at the polls when it comes to these sorts of elections?
You know, honestly, the school board elections remind me almost of how the Tea Party movement grew across the country. It started out with swelling numbers, and people were going to these meetings, then turning out for elections, but not necessarily as focused as they later became more professionalized campaigns that helped candidates win the elections. And I think the school board movement of the conservative side is in that realm right now. Numbers are swelling, interest is growing, but it's going to take next level and frankly, modern day political operations to move these candidates to positions of power and authority on the school boards. So I think we're there, just not quite there yet.
And, you know, as evidenced by that, a lot of the big spending plans that were outside the cap failed miserably in some cities. But the makeup of the school boards themselves, pretty much the status quo rules there. Am I off on that?
No, I think you're right. And it really is, it's pitting the average parent who has the concerns, you know, again, so much of what's going on in the school board agendas against the teacher union-driven candidates. Remember, the teacher unions are operating professional campaigns. The parents are just parenting, and we're going to have to find ways to get them the tools they need to be successful at the ballot.
Yep. Well, let's talk a little bit about marijuana again, Michael, one of your favorite topics. It's a huge issue in the Commonwealth. I thought this was interesting. The hundreds of churches in Pennsylvania have now signed a letter to the governor warning of the dangers of what you call, and I love this line, addiction for profit marijuana. Why has this all of a sudden become an issue that the church is interested in?
Well, you know, we're really, truly gratified that so many pastors and church leaders, including some of the denominational leaders, have signed this important letter which advocates against the push to legalize dangerous high-potency marijuana products. They're doing this this out of a legitimate concern over the welfare not only of their congregants, but of children and families across our state with that notion of addiction for profit. Our Church Ambassador Network, led by Kurt Weaver, has worked hard to educate these pastors on the serious dangers legalization has brought to other states, and thankfully that effort is bearing fruit in prayer and in action, like in this letter.
Yeah, and we're continuing to follow the investigations into New York's Attorney General Tish James. Not just her, but former Governor Andrew Cuomo is also facing a Justice Department investigation into comments he said about COVID under oath. Do you have any more information to share on either of these investigations, Jason?
Well, I don't know that there's a lot of new information out there yet. What often happens with these investigations is there will be something happening, and then there's a period of silence that occurs before some action is officially taken, and it moves to the next level. Right now, we seem to be in the phase where the investigations have been opened, and I expect that in the weeks and months to come, you'll see more activity.
All right. Well, hey, the Trump, I think they're calling it the big, beautiful bill. Last time I checked, House passage on that could be imminent if it isn't already. This is almost $4 trillion spending bill, Michael, but the reason we bring it up is because in the fine print, there are efforts here to defund Planned Parenthood, and that interests you very much. Why is it time at the federal level to stop the gravy train for the country's largest abortion provider?
Well, honestly, Bob, Jason and I could probably go on for an hour or more outlining reasons that Planned Parenthood should be defunded. Take, for example, the many millions of abortion that they're responsible for committing, including hundreds of thousands just in this last year alone. Then there was the expose on their horrific practice of selling body parts from unborn babies that were aborted in ways to preserve their tissue to maximize profits for Planned Parenthood. And now Planned Parenthood's expanded to advancing the transgender ideology, providing cross-sex hormones and other drugs and referrals for young people. And Planned Parenthood is a key promoter of explicit and perverse sex education in public schools. So that's just the start of a litany of reasons why they should be defunded. I'm glad that the Congress is looking to do that.
All right. Well, Jason, there are multiple anti-life bills in the New York State Senate, but one of these bills, you're calling it the thrash bill. I misread that at first and thought it said trash bill, but same kind of point you're making here. This so-called thrash bill poses a threat to religious liberty. Can you explain a little bit more what's going on here?
Yeah, we've labeled this as the thrash bill. It's an acronym for what we call targeting hospitals that refuse to abort for subsequent harassment. So essentially, if there are these faith-based institutions that do not want to participate in abortions or in transgender treatments of minors or maybe someday even assisted suicide should it become law in our state, the state is saying to these hospitals, you're going to have to disclose you don't do these things. We're going to have a website where you post that, and that will leave these hospitals very vulnerable to really negative activity we've seen from people that politically oppose them on these issues. Yeah. So we're concerned about it. We see it as a religious liberty issue, and we've been fighting that bill here in New York.
Yeah, that's a hit list if I've ever heard of one there. Jace, thanks for raising awareness about that. Well, Michael, there are several school districts across Pennsylvania, individual districts now taking action. If the state's not going to protect female sports, we're going to do it on our own. Why hasn't the House? I know the Senate has, but the House is not, and the governor said he wouldn't sign it even if it does. But anyway, you talk a lot about 80-20 principles and how the overwhelming majority of Pennsylvanians want this, but still, House leadership won't take this up.
Yeah. Well, we do have a slight bit of hope that maybe there could be a workaround to get it up for a vote in the House through something called a discharge resolution, but that's a long shot. But the simple answer to your question is that the Democrat-controlled House is driven by a progressive ideological base, I think, that also controls our governor, that caters to groups like Planned Parenthood, LGBT groups, and even the teachers union that simply will not allow diversion from their ideological orthodoxy on like the transgender issue and girls' sports and these sorts of things. And that's honestly why elections matter so much.
Yeah. I was talking to a local coach just yesterday about this issue. I said, what's it going to take? And he said, and just it sent chills up my spine, it's going to take somebody getting killed before they do anything on this. And God forbid we get to that point. Well, Jason, there are are rallies happening all over the state and a couple big ones still in Albany, putting pressure on the state Senate to not go there. And by there, we mean doctor-assisted suicide. It's already passed the House. And there's a big effort here to hold this back. Are you going to be successful at keeping assisted suicide from becoming law this year?
Well, it's nip and tuck here in New York, and really only the Lord knows as to whether or not we'll ultimately have victory over this legislative session. But that's also a good reminder for us that even when we don't know what else to do, we can certainly intervene in prayer in this. And we ask God's people to intercede for the state of New York that we would be successful in defeating assisted suicide legislation. It's dangerous, it's wrong, and we just should not have state-sanctioned suicide as public policy in the Empire State or any other state for that matter.
All right, if you want more information about those rallies that are upcoming in Albany to hold back assisted suicide, Jason, where can folks find out more online?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
And stay involved in all the issues as the budget deadline approaches in Pennsylvania, the effort to keep marijuana away from that. Michael, where can folks find you?
PAFamily.org.
All right, great show, gentlemen. Capital Connection comes your way every Friday during the Noon Report. You can subscribe, listen to, and share Capital Connection, along with all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast on the midday weather map. We have one area of low pressure overhead and a nor'easter moving up and off the New England coast. And this scenario is what has brought us the rain and the chill of late, and things will change little today. But gradually, over the weekend, these systems will depart and our weather will slowly improve. It will be generally overcast this afternoon, a few breaks in western Pennsylvania, and there'll be some rain at times, patchy fog and higher elevations and a breeze, and again, unusually chilly. High temperatures, upper 40s and 50s. Mainly cloudy, chilly tonight, tomorrow, some showers. 40s tonight, 50s to near 60 tomorrow. Sunday, still plenty of clouds and a shower, near 60. And then Monday, Memorial Day, partly sunny and a little milder.
All right, thank you. We will get there eventually, folks. Don't lose hope. And finally, noon today, everything makes less sense these days, it seems sometimes, including the penny.
Pennies from heaven. Shooby-dooby. Don't you know each
Now, the U.S. Treasury Department has sounded the death knell for penny production. It will stop making pennies early next year. This follows an order by President Trump, who called the coins wasteful. And here's why. Costs almost 4 cents to make the 1 cent penny. Ending penny production expected to save the U.S. Mint about $56 million, which, of course, makes a lot of sense. And that's our world. The world we live in. Friday, the 23rd of May. Have a wonderful and safe holiday weekend. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at FamilyLife.org.